Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Property Investment Australia podcast. I am your host, Lachlan Vidler, and I'm joined with my other host, my very, very good friend, William Sanchez. William, I am. How are you, mate?
Yep. Pretty good. Looking forward to 2026.
Yeah, well, mate, happy New Year's Eve. For anyone listening, we're absolutely not recording it on New Year's Eve, but you are able to listen to this on New Year's Eve because that is the release date for this episode. We are a couple of weeks in advance to that. Spoiler alert. Yeah, believe it or not, we are actually both trying to take a bit of a break and a bit of a holiday. So we are not recording this on the day it's being released. But mate, are you doing anything for New Year's Eve?
Great question.
Not sure yet?
I'll just...
It's still a couple of
Not
weeks
sure
away.
yet.
Not
sure yet.
You know what? Fair enough, mate. And for anyone who is listening in on New Year's Eve, we most certainly hope that you have a fun evening, fun day, and that the head isn't too sore tomorrow. But my God, how the year has flown. How the year has flown.
Yeah. Blink of an eye, 2 seconds, Gonski. December already.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's actually probably a very good segue into our episode, which is that this year, it feels like it has literally gone by in the blink of an eye. And unfortunately, some people did not do anything in property over 2025. And whilst this might seem like a little bit of a harsh episode to talk about, we want to talk about what the price of waiting, what those investors who did nothing in 2025, what they've missed. And like I said, that might sound a little bit harsh. And there might be a few moments in this episode where you might, if you're listening in, you might almost get a little bit offended by it. But the reason we wanted to do this is not just coincidentally because it's coming out the day before 2026 starts, but because we talk a lot about, how to drive forward and the process and this and that and that. But now that we're coming to the end of the year, we really wanted to do a bit of a hard-hitting episode to actually try and help people understand what has been missed out so that if you're in that boat, the same doesn't happen for 2026, right? Now, we want to try and light a little bit of that fire, right? And now also, I think it's really important to recognize that there's a scale of doing nothing, right? Like if you're someone who's actively trying to buy a property right now, you've done a lot, right? You might not have necessarily bought, whether that's because the market's tight and, you're working with someone who's, in the process of acquiring a property for you, whether you've been actively looking yourself and you feel confident that you haven't missed good opportunities, but it's just been hard to find them, but you've done the setup all the way. We're proud of you for doing something like that. But there are a lot of people listening in who have done nothing, or they plan to do more and they didn't get anywhere close to that. So we're really targeting that. But I think something that's going to be good about this episode is we're going to break down, I guess, a bit of what's happened in 2025 as well, because to understand what you've missed, you've got to understand what happened. Would you agree with that, William?
Yeah, I feel like we're going to shake it off. Let's shake it off and move into, yeah.
And you know what? That's exactly where we want to
Taylor
leave
Swift
it.
Here.
We want to shake it off. We want to leave it in 2025, right? So even if you do listen to this at the start of 2026, there is still that chance to just shake it off and leave it behind and drive forward into 2026. Oh, no, don't do that. You're such a dad. You're such a dad. Look at you. My God.
Come, give me a break.
For all of you who are listening in, go and have a look at that timestamp of a couple of minutes in, and you can go and look at Will having a very bad dance. It should be up on YouTube. That is terrible. That is terrible, mate.
Come on, man.
Well,
I'm always saving for a big day. That's what it is.
Well, today is a big day. So you've saved it for today, right? Today is a big day for you. Now, this, I might say this a few times as we go, right? This might sound a bit harsh, right? But I reckon one of the worst things that I see is not actually bad deals, right? I think it's actually really hard to find a genuinely bad deal, right? Like, yeah, you might overpay by a little bit or something's going on. But I think it's actually really hard to see a genuinely bad deal, right? It could be a deal that's not right for your portfolio today, and that makes it a bad deal, but like a genuine bad deal, really hard to find, right? So I think that one of the worst things we see is not actually bad deals. It's people doing nothing. And the reason why is because I think that for a lot of people, they don't see the inaction as actually money that's been lost, because nobody's gone into their bank account and taken out, $500,000, right? Or $250,000 or whatever it might be, right? So it doesn't feel like you've actually got a loss there. But that's not reality, right? That's not reality, because there is a loss, because there was opportunity.
There's opportunity
lost.
cost.
Yeah, exactly right. What have you had anyone this year that, here's a question for you. Anyone that you've ended up working with this year that has delayed for years and years prior, but they finally took action this year? Have you had anyone like that?
Yes, I did. A few, but one comes to mind.
Notable story?
Yeah, one comes to mind. Oh yeah. We've been talking for a couple of years. And as you know, properties in Sydney increase very quickly.
Yeah.
You know how it is. And the quality as well. They were very should I say pedantic? They were very pedantic with what they wanted. Very precise as to what they wanted. So they could never find the right place. Right? So they, it took way too long until I actually suggested a buyer's agent, which is, I did suggest it, and they were, I don't understand the gain and why to use them, blah, blah, blah. I said, well, look how hard it is to find properties today. There's no properties in the market, and every single month you wait, it's another couple of, another 20, 30,000 you add to your budget, because that's just the cost of business. And then by telling them and opening their minds to it, that's when they realized they were missing out. I said, see, now you're investing in a different professional who will actually save you time, get the job done, and save you money. Because at the end of the day, every time that every minute, every day that you lose, it's money going down the drain. So you gotta take action.
Yeah.
So there you go, my friend. That's my example for you.
I like it, mate. And I think that that's a pretty relatable story for most people, because it's, it's so easy for it to go in the too hard basket. It's so easy for it to just not transpire for whatever reason. But,
and they did buy a beautiful property at the end.
Oh, they did?
I didn't say that at the end.
I didn't want to push you. Yeah. I didn't want to push you on it. That's great.
No, it was a great property off market.
Yeah. Whereabouts?
It was Erskineville.
Yeah. In the west.
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah, beautiful property. Pretty close to the train station where the action is. So
like a townhouse? Like a classic inner west townhouse?
It was. But it was a great deal. It was renovated as well.
Yeah.
And they just the sell had to sell very quickly.
Yeah.
So by using the buyer's agent, they ended up buying a great property.
Yeah.
Ready to go. Just move in and have parties.
Yeah.
That's what they did.
I love it. 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 Well, let's get into a bit of the cost of inaction this year, which I guess a little bit of a review of some of the things that have happened as well. So I guess the first place that I want to start is capital growth, right? That's probably the first place I want to start. So anyone who was following some of the markets that were, quite attractive markets at the beginning of the year, of which, plenty of them are also still quite attractive markets now, will know that there has been some performance increase, right? But, I can think of quite a few markets that, straight off the top of my head, that have had huge performance this year, right? Huge performance. So, you could look at a market like Townsville, right? Like now it's getting, like at the start of the year, you could find properties that had a 4. Now there's almost no properties that have a 4 in front of them, right? Now you're almost at a point where most properties are almost having a 6 in front of them, right? If you look at the percentage gains of somewhere like Townsville, I don't actually have the raw percentages in front of me, but you're talking about the fact that market has gone up probably in the vicinity of 15 to 20% this year, right? At least, and that's without having isolated examples, like I know that I know that we bought properties up there, and I know that some of those properties have had over 30% growth in less than 12 months, right? And then I also know that most properties up there will have experienced in that minimum sort of 15 to 20% range, right? So you got a market like that, it's moved. So for people who are thinking about inaction, right, that's in excess of $100,000 that you probably lost if you were looking at a market, for example, like Townsville, right?
Yeah.
You then go to markets like WA, right? Perth, especially, certain pockets of Perth, been a phenomenal year there, and I think Perth actually a few markets over in Perth actually tapered off a bit around the middle of the year. It had a really, really nice run last year, a good start to the year this year. And then it started to taper off a little bit. But Perth is actually looking like it's having a little bit of a resurgence. But over there, seeing something very, very similar, that in some of those, more attractive investment pockets, we're seeing upwards of 20% growth over there as well, right? In terms of not just isolated properties, I mean, at a more market level, right? Like you absolutely, like I would say, I haven't seen a deal with a 5 in front of it for quite a long time now, right? Like you're now talking 6s and 7s, right? Versus last year's 5s and maybe early last year 4s, right? So again,
I can vouch for that.
You can vouch for that, right? You're talking about, again, probably upwards of about I reckon Perth, or some of those pockets of Perth that were quite investment aware. Talking about upwards of probably $150,000 that's been lost by some investors, right? And then I'll pick out a newer market, right? Or a market that's sort of, probably at a better part of its cycle, right? Is a market like Bendigo, right? Victoria market, we know that Victoria as a whole has not been one of the strongest performers, right? And I'll say it, we're doing some buying in Bendigo, right? It's got to be the right market. Sorry, not the right market, the right property and the right deal. But we're doing some buying there, right? So there you go. People are always looking for areas. There you go. There's one.
You're giving it away. The
giving one
secret
away.
sauce.
Giving one away. But you know what the best part is that the secret sauce is what we do. I've talked about it before. There's no such thing as secret sauce. The secret sauce is not to know necessarily an area. Like there's a lot of heavy lifting that still goes into it, right?
No, that's very nice of you, for sharing this with our listeners.
No, it's fine. But that's why I want to bring it up, right? A market like Bendigo, for example, right? Victoria had a lot of challenges over the last few years with government intervention, and that intervention's gone into tenancy reform. It's gone into tax reform not necessarily being a good word in some of these cases, right? And it's sort of made, it's brought issues, right? It's brought issues. It's dropped sentiment. Victoria is not doing very well, right? As a whole, Victoria is really not doing very well, right? But certain markets, we're starting to see some performance, right? So you look at a market like Bendigo, I would say in the last 6 months, there's probably been a good 10 to 15% growth that's been seen in that market, right? From the middle of the year to now, because things are starting to change, right? There's also an argument for affordability, which is that some people just can't afford to buy other places. Like people are locked out of Melbourne, investors are locked out of other markets. People are trying to get in now with these first home buyer changes. So there's driven a bit of competition, which at the end of the day, that's obviously property, right? Supply and demand. So that demand side has started to pick up quite a bit in a lot of different pockets of the community. And then you look at a market like Bendigo, it hasn't had a 1 year performance as big as other markets, but it's starting to gain traction, right? So there you go. Capital growth over the course of 2025. That's some opportunity cost. I would say conservatively, if you haven't tried to take any action and put yourself forward, you probably lost minimum $100,000 this year. That'd be the way I'd describe it. Would you agree that's probably a fair ballpark?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, especially from what you see.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's a misconception as well. Some people just because they waited so long, they come to you and they think they can find something with the 5 in the beginning, and tough luck. Sorry.
Yeah. I actually reminds me. I got to text him back. It's a client of ours. We've done some work with him before. He actually sent me a text the other day, and he said, "Oh, mate, look at getting ready to go for the next one. Blah blah blah. I'm not going to give anything away on this one. But he said, "Oh, I'm looking for something with a 4." And I need to go back and respond to him. But
it's okay. It's a garage.
It's
It's a shoebox they're looking for.
they're exactly right.
Maybe it's a parking spot.
I mean, I'm sure you've seen some of that. You always see them in the news when somebody goes and sells one of those. Always makes the news because it's sort of, obviously it's a bit humorous that someone's selling a parking spot, but the sad irony is that people can sell them because the land is so valuable. Even for something as small as that. But yeah, anyway, long story short, my point being exactly what you said, that people lose perception or perspective around it, and like you can't really find something to for decently anymore, and I'm sure someone's going to go, oh yeah, you definitely can. I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm just saying that like it's pretty challenging. It's pretty challenging. But anyway, so that's capital growth side, right? Now, rental side. So something that everyone's got to be aware of is that prices, more or less, in markets that are worthwhile investing in, prices of properties are moving faster than rents of properties are growing. Now, both are obviously improving. However, when the price of a property goes up faster than the rental growth is, we get something that's called yield compression, which is basically that, like, you can go and do the maths on it in your own time. But, basically the simple maths is, if you've got a property that's worth $500,000 and it rents for $500 a week, right? Or sorry, you buy it for $500,000 and it rents for $500 a week, right? You've got a property that's got a 5.2% rental yield, right? But then, and I'm trying to really quickly do the maths here, but then let's say that property is now worth $600,000 and it's still only got the same amount of rent, or even if that rent goes up slightly, right? Let's say the rent goes from $500 to $525, right? I'll do the maths here. Hang on. But the property is worth $600,000. You've now got a 4.5% rental yield, right? So that's what we call yield compression, which is where things can still be going up, which is great, but the yield gets lower because the price is going faster than the improvement in the rental value. And the reason I'm talking about this is because we are seeing that around the country. It means yields are compressing. So what it means is, by not taking action, you're actually now in a position where a property that you might have been able to buy at the start of this year with a 5% yield, now you're only buying it at maybe, say, a 4.5% yield. And that actually does have a direct impact, because that means your mortgage is going to be bigger, which means, or likely means your mortgage is going to be bigger, assuming you're not putting in more cash, which means your repayments are likely to be bigger, which then means that your cash flow is likely to be worse. So you actually do now have an out-of-pocket hit because the yields have compressed. And it might only be $1,000 a year or $2,000 a year or whatever it might be. But it's important to understand that there is actually a direct impact that comes with that. And I'm sure, Will, you've seen that when you look at servicing calculators now, right? That yields that are being put in for purchases or whatever are actually now probably coming in a little bit lower than what they might have been doing 12 months ago.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That's a big part of what we do. We now need to take a much more conservative approach to rental returns when we run the numbers, because we haven't actually been able to see some higher returns like previously last year.
Yeah.
But yeah, we got to be very, very diligent when we look for rental appraisals as well.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly right. Exactly right. So that's another area that we've seen that, and we've seen that kind of uniformly across the board. Like I can give you an example. Like 2 to 3 years ago, if you were talking about buying in any regional city, right? But let's say the big ones, right? Like let's say you're talking about big regional cities where there's hundreds of thousands of people, airport, universities, hotels, like all the rest, like big cities. They're just not a capital, right? There was kind of a broad expectation that you get a 5% rental yield as a minimum, right? And one of the things that was kind of seen was that if you went out of the capitals and you went to some of these regionals, where, again, obviously big developed markets, that you get a bit of a cash flow bump because you're going out there, right? And a bit of a perceived more risk, right? That risk definitely, I would say, is not real because they're huge, bona fide cities in their own right? But that was kind of the situation. But now there are lots of very large regional cities that have the same rental yield as some capital cities. And the reason is because they're desirable places to live. People are absolutely seeing it. Cost of living is maybe making people disperse out a little bit further than capitals than they have at any other point in time. But property prices are still growing far more rapidly than the rents are. So, it's a real situation now where, like, you go and try and find a flat 5% in a lot of markets, you're not finding it. Like you're buying in markets you wouldn't want to be buying in just to get that, right? Which doesn't really make a lot of sense in a lot of times anyway. So that's the rental yield side. So we got that. Let's move on to market competition, right? Like the start of the year to now, right? We've seen a lot of things happen, right? Start of the year, rates hadn't dropped yet. We didn't have some of the lending changes. We didn't have other government interventions happening. Markets were certainly hot, but I would say that it was still nowhere near as hot as it is right now, right? I would say we are seeing huge increases in market competition now compared to where we were at the start of the year. And that start of the year, and people going back listening to the podcast would know that I said it, it was hot then. Now it's just like an inferno, right? It's like
it's
an inferno.
sizzling.
It's sizzling, right? It's like those Christmas hams sizzling away in the oven, right? It is hot,
That's it.
right? And I guess what we've seen that's driven that has been, we've seen some interest rate cuts, right? Which naturally has brought some more people back into the market because from an affordability point of view, they can now afford to obviously have a bigger loan, right? We've seen that we've had lending policies that have had changes, right? We've seen that that's happened over the course of the year, right? We've seen structures get hit. We've seen credit policies change. We've seen assessments of income. I mean, is there anything that you want to say on that front?
No, I think you've covered it all. Essentially, the majority you've covered them. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. But we've seen big lending changes that I would say broadly has made things more competitive in some areas, less competitive in others. But I'd say on the whole, it's probably averaged out to be more competitive. We've then seen things like the federal first home buyer stuff coming out where that got brought forward because it was meant to be starting in 26 and now it started in October. So that's also brought more people into the mix. And there's probably just there'll be other stuff as well, right? That we've seen that's gone on, So
migration numbers.
Yeah, like there's heaps of stuff, right? But I think all in all, market competition has significantly increased from the start of the year to today. And I don't really see much of a situation where market competition is going to be, significantly like better, like improved, as in go down into next year. So that cost of waiting is that you're now facing more competition. You're likely to miss out on more properties before you land one, right? Whether you're working with a buyer's agent or not, you're probably likely to miss out on more before you get one, right? You're probably more likely to then face like prices are obviously going to keep moving because that competition is there. So these are all real factors that have happened this year that are going to impact 2026 and the cost that people who didn't do anything this year are feeling, right? And then
a key point is to understand that your savings are not likely to grow as fast as the property prices, right?
For
so
sure.
you're going to be chasing
sure.
your tail if you wait around.
Yeah. And I mean, the fourth thing that I was going to talk about was going to be borrowing power, but I feel like we just kind of talked about it, right? And I think that, to me, the crux of it is, on the whole, some people probably do have some more borrowing power at the end of the year than they did have at the start. But you got to remember that you might have a little bit more borrowing power, but the reality is that the property prices have probably moved further than what your borrowing power may have increased by, which means that objectively, the same property that you could have bought at the start of the year, you now can't buy it today, which on the whole, it's a net negative effect. And that is the cost of waiting, right?
Waiting, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So I guess to round out the episode a little bit, I think we want to address, some of the really common reasons why people may have waited, and we just want to call them out. And, honestly, I'm going to say for all of them, they're crap. They're just crap. It's laziness. More than anything, it's laziness, right? It's finding excuses, There you go.
Take it off.
The first one is a fear of buying at the top, right? And I understand it. No one wants to feel like they bought a property at the top of the market and now it's going to obviously, drop off or something, right? I think there's a few things I want to address with this. First one is property is not a short-term asset, right? Let's say in the unlikely scenario that you did buy a property at the top and the market didn't continue to perform, this is probably a far more likely reality. The property is not going to drop in value, or if it does, it might drop by a very small margin. But your property is not going to be, assuming you haven't bought, this is obviously also under the assumption you bought in a good market. Your property is actually far more likely to just plateau, right? So That is actually a far more likely scenario, right? If that was something that happened, right? The reality is, though, people have been saying literally since like, I reckon 2021, oh, I don't want to be buying because I'm buying at the top. And shock horror, all the really strong investable markets have done nothing but increase for the last, five, almost coming on 6 years, right? So all those people that sit back and go, I've got a fear of buying at the top. The reality is you probably aren't actually at the top. Now, you need to be able to understand and analyze markets. You need to be able to understand what's right for your portfolio. If you can't do that, that's when someone like, us at Atlas can help and where you need to come and get us to help you. But if you can do it, then this shouldn't really be an issue for you, right? That's what I mean. It's just a crap reason. It's not real. It's not real because there are so many markets that are not at the top. And there's so many markets that you might think are at the top but aren't, and you can see that through the data. So I think a fear of buying at the top, I think we can call that myth busted, right? All right. So kind of the same thing, or not kind of the same thing, but I guess something that loops into that is then it's also like I'm waiting for the crash or I'm waiting for interest rates to drop, right? If there's one thing I could say to everyone is if you're always waiting on something else to happen, when that thing eventually happens, something else will be going on that will then make you say, well, I'm now waiting for that, right? Like there are people that we've been talking to for years and years that said, oh, I'm waiting for rates to drop. Rates dropped this year. And guess what? When we called them up and said, rates have dropped, are you ready to go? It was, oh, nah, property market's too hot, right? Going back, and I guess that loops into my last point, right? And they just found another reason, right? That inaction is the reason that they have still not built a portfolio. And yet we've got clients that are on to like their fourth and their fifth property. And they've made, some of them have made, like starting to like over $500,000 in, maybe only, 2 or 3 or 4 years. And they certainly didn't make that from their jobs. And they also did it, without needing to really actively do much. So anyway, sorry, I don't want to get my soapbox. I'm going to keep it going, some of these reasons. All right. So next one is information overload or analysis paralysis. And you know what? This one I have a little bit more empathy for because I understand that there's a lot that can go on when you're trying to analyze a property market. But to me, the really, really simple answer to this is if you have analysis paralysis, go and get help, right? Go and get help from us at Atlas. Go and get help from someone else if you don't want to work with us. If you don't want to be working with, Channel 9 investment expert and all the rest, don't work with us. That's fine. That's fine.
Oh, geez.
Like I just threw that in, you like that, the little last bit of bragging I can do for 2025. But I guess my point is that like I can understand how as somebody on their own trying to do it and they've never done it before, this might be a little bit more difficult to deal with, but there is actually options to fix that, right? And I think finally, and this is the worst one of all of them, is saying, I'm busy. Oh, I'm just too busy, like, oh, okay. Well, you know what? Like newsflash, everyone's busy. When's the last time you went into a conversation with someone and you said, oh, how are you? And someone didn't say, oh, yeah, good, just really busy. That's the stock standard answer everyone gives. Also because at the end of the day, we are all busy. But that is not an excuse because all that happens is other people find a way to overcome that and they end up having their success, right? And if you just constantly are busy, well, then that's where you go and pay a fee, right? Come and pay us a fee. Everyone knows we charge a fee. Of course we do, right? That's how we make our money. Come and pay us a fee. We will take that burden off you. We'll do a better job than you probably would have done anyway, and you'll get it done, right? And if we charge you $10, $15, $20, $30,000, whatever it is, right, depending on what your circumstances are, I can almost guarantee you that you're going to make more money in that year from that property than that fee, and in spades and spades and spades, that you look back and go, you know what, it's probably worth just paying that, and we just made $100,000, But being busy,
I like that,
right? It's the truth, though. It's the truth, right? Like at the end of the day, everyone knows what we do, and if we charge you 15 grand,
it's called consistency.
Exactly right.
Consistent
100%.
results.
Man, well, I mean, Will, if I charged you 15 or 20 grand and I made you 100, and I took all the effort away from you from needing to do it, as if you're not going to say yes.
I'll pay 40.
Right? That's the point, right?
Two.
Right. But that's the point, isn't it? Right. So guys, if you're sitting there and you're just talking about being too busy, like, I just got to call it out. It's just crap. It's crap. And you're only hurting yourself. Because at the end of the day, like in my case, there'll be another client that will take your place, right? But no one's going to replace that money for you. And that's the thing you got to remember, is that we can always find excuses, but no one's going to solve that for you except for you, right? So I guess that's what I've got to, kind of say on that one, right? But for me, they're the big reasons why people wait. Is there anything you want to throw on top, my very good friend? I know I'm talking a bit this episode, but is there anything you want to throw on top?
No, to be honest, I think we've covered a
Yeah?
lot today. Yeah, we've covered a lot. I think that's
All right.
You've cracked the whip.
Crack the whip.
I think not enough.
Crack the whip. All right. Well, then let's round out this episode, right? So what can you do? What can you learn from everything we've talked about and the updates we've given, right? What can you learn? Well, the first one is, not only do you need to start sooner, but you need to start sooner with clarity. Now, I'm going to loop you back to our previous episode, which was all about, if you're starting out for 2026 or whatever, like starting, and we'll give you a bit of a roadmap, right? Go back and listen to that, and that's going to help you, right? Starting sooner and starting with clarity is such a key part, because you want to take action and get moving, but then you also want to do it with the right plans and stuff in place, right? So that's the first one. Next one, which definitely loops also back into that episode, is your buying criteria. And that's going to come straight off your plan, right? You're going to know what the next asset is, but you need to understand what your buying criteria is so that you're not getting overwhelmed, so that you're targeting the right properties and you're not just taking a shotgun approach, because there's too much going on in everyone's lives, let alone in the property markets. If you just try and take the shotgun, you're not going to have enough time. All right. And I think the third one is, you need to use January wisely, right? Too many people are going to sit back and it's going to be, I'll wait till Australia Day before I start doing stuff, right? The classic corporate excuse, right? Then when that happens, it'll be, I'm too busy. I'm jumping into work. I'll look at this like maybe in Feb, like back of Feb, like once I've sort of got back into the year. Then it just starts to snowball from there, right? Use your January wisely. Come and talk to us at Atlas and start those conversations out, and we'll point you in the right direction. Go and start talking to Will and his team and start getting finance sorted or understanding the finance picture, because that takes time as well. But use your January wisely, because if you want to fall into that group of people that move it along, that don't start doing something until Feb or March, you're probably not buying till June or July. That's the reality, right? It's going to take you months to get everything sorted out, to then start looking, to then find something. Like it could even hit August, right? Like if you got, really, particular circumstances. So use Jan wisely.
Yeah, when you put into perspective, it's crazy, isn't it? If you're not organized, you can delay.
Man, I agree,
dramatically
right?
your purchase.
Well, let's play it out, right? January 26th, Australia Day. I don't know what day it falls on this year, but Australia Day, right? It's probably close enough to a weekend, so everyone goes, all right, well, I'm not going to do anything for that last week of Jan because it's going to be Australia Day, weekend, whatever. So now we're at 1st of Feb, right? 1st of Feb, you're ripping back into work and you go, you know what? Valentine's Day is coming up. I just got to work towards that, whatever, keep it pushing through. I'll sort it out the back of Feb, right? So let's say like 21 Feb, you start looking at it, right? You get in touch, you start having meetings. Let's say it takes you a month to get organized with finance, making sure you can do it, docs, this, that, right? So now we're talking 21 March is when you're now really engaging with, maybe you've come to Atlas, like we're in a position where we can start driving forward. We still got to do your portfolio planning. We still got to do all this. We need the finance info to understand that, right? So let's say that like that carries you through into April, right? Then we get into April. Easter's early in 2026. I'm pretty sure Easter's like actually first week of April, right? So now it's like, all right, are we ready to kick off the search? Maybe not. Let's wait till after April, school holidays, all the rest. All right, now it's mid-April. And now you're going, all right, let's start looking. And let's say it takes 2 or 3 months, right? Like 8 to 12 weeks, pretty standard time frame considering how hot it is, right? So let's say April. So now you go May, you go June, and potentially even July, right? That's 3 months. You're now at July, and maybe you're going under contract on a property, and you're not settling till August. So there you go, guys. Right there. That's my soapbox that I'm on, right?
If you're going to get off your chair right now after this, chit chat, I don't know what we'll like, honestly.
Yeah. Well, like, I don't say it to hurt people's feelings. I don't say it to scare them. I say it because it's a reality. If you delay, it's now August by the time you've actually settled on a property. And
Oh, you're
by the time
helping
it
him.
hits August, man, like 2027 is almost here. Isn't that crazy? All because
Yeah,
you didn't want to use January wisely. You didn't want to do that.
yeah.
You waited and you started at the back of Feb, right? So I want to leave that thought with everybody, right? So, mate, I reckon I'm going to close this out for us because I think that's a nice place to leave it. And hopefully that lights a bit of a fire under everybody. All right. So, guys, let's take some action. Let's hook in. Whether you're going to do it yourself, whether you're going to come talk to us at Atlas, you're going to talk to Will at Aussie, start to take action and use January wisely. All right. So, in terms of doing that, atlaspropertygroup.com.au, go and drop your details in. We're going to be back very early in January. The team will get on to you ASAP. Let's start that process. Let's not overthink it. If we're going to make you 100 grand, it's obviously not a promise, but if we're going to be making you 100 grand of equity and you're paying us 15 or 20K or something, pretty worthwhile evolution. Start doing it. Reach out, right? And same for Will and the team at Aussie, right? It takes time to get the finance done. They're going to ask for more docs. It's probably going to feel invasive because that's the banks, not them. But reach out. Will's details are in the bio for the episode and the show. Go and hit them up at Aussie Newtown, and they will sort you out and they'll get you moving along. Will,
Absolutely.
anything to
Thanks
say?
for that, my friend.
Anything
That
to
was a
say?
very, very, very nice segue. Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah,
Not at all,
exactly.
mate.
You can reach out to me or to my team. Anyone at Aussie Newtown can help you out. So just
Yep.
reach out. We'll be there to assist you in your beautiful journey.
Yep.
I promise.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, guys, thank you so much. That is wrapping our episode as well as 2025. We've loved hearing from you. Please continue to send things in to us for episode recommendations and all the rest. Please keep dropping those 5-star reviews. But by the time you listen to us, we're all the way back into 2026. So until then, have a safe and happy new year, and we will see you on the other side.
This is a Piccolo podcast production.